That is 6:04. Call order of Grayson County Board of Supervisors. It's been Thursday, February the 11th. Mr. Smith, would you lead us an invocation and pledge, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Father, thank you for the day that's been given. Thank you that you're in charge and nothing catches you by surprise, even though it does us sometimes. We pray that you just be with us tonight in this meeting. And thank you for our Board of Supervisors that serve so faithfully. Thank you for the ones that have shown up for the meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. Okay, I hope everybody's had a chance to look over the agenda, the consent agenda. I'll look for a motion to approve.
Okay, so this one's updated from the one that's on disregard.
So moved. Second. All in favor, aye. Okay, first on the agenda is the public hearing. This will be a public hearing to receive public comments regarding the amendment of Grayson County Transit occupancy tax ordinance. Commit 3% rebate of 5% transit occupancy tax and establish the tax at a simple 5%. Yes, I was looking for Bill. Looking for motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
We are in public hearing. Mr. Jeff, are you going public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have anyone.
Nobody.
Tracy here is gonna, she can speak on the
Okay.
people on camera.
Have you read it? Just so you'll know what we're talking about.
No, they've not read the ordinance changes yet, the proposed changes, so you will have to tell them about that, but they do have it.
You mean if I read it out loud, is that what you're asking? No, you're just starting on now.
Okay. So the tourism department would like to request an amendment to section 59, transient occupancy taxes. I have had no calls or emails asking me questions. There are two sections there that have been changed from the original ordinance. One the attorney Steve Durbin did, and that is in section 59.5. And it is to clarify the definition of transient. Basically, what he did was to add one sentence to the end there to kind of get us up to 21st century language. It says the term includes individuals residing for not more than 30 days in private residences obtained through short-term rental websites, applications, and similar short-term rental services. In other words, Airbnb, VRBO, and online rentals. And so Steve Durbin felt that we needed to clarify that, and he added that. If you will look at 59.6 of the original ordinance, the transient occupancy tax has already been established at 5%. And then the change that we would like the board to consider making especially is in section 59.8. And
Tracy, do we actually have the ordinance you're talking about? We have the resolution, but do we have the ordinance? You're referencing some stuff.
it should be in there.
No, all they have is the proposed changes, but what she's talking about is the proposed changes.
If you just made that paragraph 59 or something.
Okay.
That would.
So you all don't have,
You may want to tell them about this code section is not 56A, it's 59.
yes, it's all been changed to 59. I'm sorry, I thought you all had a copy of the ordinance, and you don't have that, is what you're telling me.
Legal did that today for us. They noticed that the 56.8 was supposed to be 59.8. So the language is the same.
The language is saying that the ordinance is not, the
The numbers.
numbering in the ordinance is incorrect.
Yes. It's been changed to 59 per state code.
Okay.
So the main change that we want to make comes from the section that is 59, now 59.8. And it concerns the 3% rebate of the 5% transient occupancy tax. And I'm just going to read to you what it said before and then tell you what part that we would like the board to consider removing. It says the person, firm, or corporation collecting any tax as provided in this article shall make out a report showing the amount of lodging charges collected and the taxes required to be collected. Such persons shall sign and deliver such report to the county treasurer with the remittance of the tax collected, less 3% of the total amount collected, provided that the amount is not delinquent at the time of payment. It goes on to say such report and remittance is due by the 20th day of the month following the month in which the taxes were collected. And then this part we would like to omit as well. The 3% deduction, commission of services, is allowed to defray the expenses incurred by persons, firms, or corporations collecting the tax. No commission shall be allowed if the amount due was delinquent. Okay, so in layman's terms, what we do is we offer a 3% rebate on the 5% transient occupancy tax. And that is causing a great deal of confusion. If we take a round figure of $100, of course, 5% tax on $100 is $5, okay? 3% of that 5% is 15 cents. So folks are supposed to remit $4.85 for every $100, keep 15 cents. The confusion is they're thinking they're keeping 3% and giving us 2. So in other words, they are keeping $3 of every 100 and giving us $2. And I have talked through this with lots of different folks as our Airbnbs are really increasing in Grayson County. We're starting to get, the Airbnb business is very good for us as far as transient occupancy tax. And I've even had folks to say to me, can I just give you the 5% and not do that 3% rebate? And so we think that it would be much simpler for the vacation owners if they could just remit a straight, simple 5%, do away with the 3% rebate that was June 13th, 2013, when the transient occupancy tax was established. And the purpose for it, I believe at that time, was to encourage people to pay their taxes. But as you can see, it's not a huge amount. It's not going to make or break anybody. It's 15 cents on $100. So if you go up to $1,000, we're talking $1.50 rebate that they would get to keep off from what they owe. But when you get to that increased amount, the confusion's causing people to pay us, or to keep $30 and pay us $20. Questions?
Is 5% the max the state allows on?
No, actually, I believe it goes up to 8%. But Grayson County established in 2013 that we would charge 5.
And at that time, that's the match.
Okay, but it's 2021 now. Is your recommendation keep it at 5%?
I would recommend to leave it at 5%, not to increase it, but to do away with 3% of the 5% rebate that is causing confusion.
This is a little off the side track here. Most of the people using Airbnb and VRB and all those websites are coming from areas where occupancy taxes are 25 to 30%. I agree. We're giving too good of it because people in this county are not the ones renting these places. It's people coming from Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Knoxville, and I mean, you almost pay more in taxes in those communities than you pay for the actual rental. So I think, in addition, I like your idea. Don't get me wrong. I think it'll go up on 5%. I mean, I really do.
You do make a good point in that the tax is passed to the consumer.
Yeah.
We do not ask for the homeowner, Airbnb rental, to pay that tax.
And this tax is not taxing people that live here. This generally is
Not unless they
taxing people.
rent.
Right, well, but they're running it as a business. I'm saying that the people that are remitting it are people that are coming here from somewhere else.
That's right.
Yes.
So, you know, when we spent a lot of effort on the levy increases and that whole plan. This was not part of that discussion at the time, but I think it ought to be part of the discussion to increase it to some X amount. If the state allows, I mean, 8%. If that's what the state allows us to do, maybe that's the right number. I don't know, but.
And I will need to double check that if that's what you decide to do to
Well,
make sure.
That piece, I know we don't want to decide tonight, but I do think as part of the budget processors that we just started, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we discussed looking at all the fees that we had in addition to taxes,
Yeah.
building inspections and building fees, those things. I think we ought to dust that off and bring this also to the table. Do we want to adjust it and see what the numbers look like? But I'm with you. I mean, this to me, I'm all about making the confusion, lessening that. But I think this other piece ought to be part of the discussion.
I think that's a good idea, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So for tonight, we want to vote on ordinance, right?
I think it makes sense. It would simplify a lot of things.
Okay.
Unless you're, for one, paying the
Yeah.
20% instead of the.
Yeah, we amended
The $20.
to reflect the maximum state rate.
I think we would have to have a public hearing to do that because that wasn't announced.
That piece, Ms. Hatch, I think we could include into the overall budget process, and then when we do the public hearing for that, we could include that as part of the public hearing for the budget. That's my thought on it.
Okay. I guess we look for a motion to go out of here.
Mr. Chairman.
That's
I'll look here.
So,
where now, I guess we will look for a motion to approve this ordinance,
So move.
second,
and this will be a roll call vote. Ms. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mr. Ash, Mr. Hills, Mr. Fan, and I also aye. So the ordinance passed.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your help.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
thanks, Tracy.
First on reports, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Chairman, before we do, Ms. Shipley, do you need a action item on this review of the fees thing? You know, do you need us to make a motion to do something? or-
No, I think we can just, as you suggested, we need to look at everything, all of those areas, and maybe what we could do is come back to the board and say, here's what we think about the entire batch. Thank you.
Scott, I'm sorry to bring my water bottle here.
It's all good, thank you.
I have it, it's in the truck.
It's all good. All right, thank you all for having me. My name is Scott Wickham. I'm partner in charge of the county's audit. Hoping that the slideshow will load here for Carl. basically I'll start off on the overview of the audit results slide. And I'll move to the actual audit report and hit a few high spots in that, and I'll come back to the handout. In the full audit report on page 2, you all have the independent auditor's report on the financial statements. Again, you all have an unmodified, clean, good opinion. It's the best opinion you can get. There is an additional paragraph this year for restatement of beginning balances. We did restate to use the effective interest method on bond premiums, but nothing that was too significant to your cash or modified accrual based financial statement. Starting on page 5 through page 13 is the management discussion and analysis. The county, along with their consultants, do a great job of summarizing the annual results, some comparative data there. If you're only going to read part of it, that's a good piece.
Are you actually in the audit or?
I'm actually in the audit report, the thick report. Yeah. So yeah, on this slide, I'm going to go through parts of the actual report, and then I'll move back to the slides. All right. So yeah, the management discussion analysis. If you want to read some comparative data or only part of the report, that's a good summary of the overall report. As always, I'm an accountant, and I like the details, the numbers on all the report, but that's a good summary there for sure. Exhibit 1 on page 14 is the statement of net position for the county. You also have the business type activities there, which is the PSA, London PSA, and the school board column there to the right. Across the bottom, you have net position or the net worth of those. This is the balance sheet on the full accrual accounting. So this includes all of the assets of the county and the school board and the PSA, and less all the related debt there. So you can see them separated to come to the net worth, essentially, if you will. And then that net worth, the net position, is divided into different buckets. You've got the net investment capital assets, which is this building, which is not easily available for use for sale, essentially, and other items like this, infrastructure in the ground and vehicles. Items are restricted by grants, stuff like that. And then unrestricted, which is available for you all to use. So as you can see, the county has about $5 million there available to use. The school board has negative 16 million available, and don't get scared by that. That's very common for school boards. That's the allocation of the state net pension liability, driving that into negative. That's nothing the school board's done wrong, or they're not in potential trouble because of that. That's just an allocation of the state liability. On page 16, exhibit 3, this is a balance sheet on a shorter term modified accrual statement. I'm in the audit report. I'll move back to the slides here in just a second. But exhibit 3, one item I wanted to point out is that you have a new significant unearned grant revenue line item of $1.2 million. Those related to the coronavirus relief fund money you all received in June, but had not spent. So it was shown as unearned revenue there, about $1.2 million. But then across the bottom, you have fund balances, which is the cash on hand plus the short-term receivables plus the short-term payables. So a little shorter term net worth, if you will. Across the bottom is the unassigned fund balance, which is what we recommend using as your judgment of how well the county is doing financially. I did want to point out you all started the broadband fund this year, so that shows up now in there as well. But the county has about $6.6 million in unassigned fund balance.
So when you mentioned about, okay, there it is, committed broadband.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So those were the funds you all moved into that broadband fund right here. And on page 18 of the report is exhibit 5. This is the income statement on that short-term modified accrual basis accounting, which will align a little bit more with the annual budget you all approved. As you can see there towards the bottom, the general fund had an increase of about $791,000 in normal operations, 1.4 when you consider the impact of the capital leases. So in prior years, the last 2 years, and it's in the slides as well, you all had more than $1 million decline in that fund balance. So as a result of the tax increase and other savings items, you were able to take that negative $1 million loss and turn it into million gain to help offset those prior year losses. So you can see how it looks in just a second, but that was a much better year financially for you all. On page 20 is Exhibit 7. This is the detailed balance sheet of the PSA fund and then your internal service fund, which is the health insurance fund. When you get into Exhibit 7, 8, and 9, I always recommend looking at Exhibit 9, which is your cash flow. And I want to point out the blended PSA is reported here. You can kind of look right in the middle of this page on Exhibit 9, page 22. You can see that the PSA had an increase of about $1,000. All the activity netted to about an increase of $1,000. That does not really fund any planned projects. It does not really fund any depreciation, which you may not have to fund, but it's something to think about that the infrastructure is being used. Eventually, you're going to need to repair it and replace it, and that's not generating funds to do that down the road. But it didn't operate at a loss, but I just want to point that out. If you look at the Exhibit 8, it also shows up that the PSA lost $91,000, but that almost, or more than that, is the depreciation non-cash expense. So that's why I kind of wanted to point that out, that the fund cash-wise did okay, but on the accrual basis, you did lose $97,000. All right, I'm gonna jump to the back of this report. There's a lot of data in here on the VRS net pension liability and those good things. But on page 143 of the audit report, you all have the gas report, the gas opinion. We do have one finding noted. It's very similar to the prior year finding. Just need to keep working on getting the records cleaned up. Within the Edmund system, there's some items in the balance sheet that probably need a little bit cleaning up. Some of the entries were confusing related to the delay in taxes. You all pushed the tax deadline date out from before June 30th till after June 30th, and made some of the accounting for that more complicated. We did pull back the collection within 60 days for that to properly show the fund balance, but it required some journal entries to do that. So that's where that finding results from. On page 145 and 146, this is the opinion on uniform guidance.
Could you say that again a different way?
I'll try.
Yeah. So
I'll try.
I'm not sure I understood what you just said about that line.
Sure. So audit standards don't let me come in and make a bunch of journal entries to the financial statements. If I do that, I have to report a finding. You all have pretty good cash basis financials, and then the consultants come in and help get those to modified accrual and accrual basis for me to audit. And in the process of a few small errors in the Edmonds, and then maybe some miscommunications with consultants getting to me, in our detailed audit process, we find things that need to be fixed, and if they're material, I have to report a finding, essentially. With everything happening in COVID, and that's really not that unusual, particularly this year. I have seen improvements over the years, but we're still not there yet.
So are there specific recommendations that you have made to the staff about how we can improve that, or we know what to do? It's just.
Yes, some of that we have. We've talked about the different transfers. I think you all have added lines to your budget for transfers instead of sinking them down into actual accounting lines. We can get very accounting technical, but there are a few things we've recommended with the staff, and some things that I think that will be evident for the consultants to correct next year before it gets to us. But yeah, so it's just an accounting item. Overall, the books are still in good shape.
I understood it.
Sometimes it's hard to explain that. That's definitely an item that takes a couple times sometimes. Page 145 and 146 is the federal uniform guidance opinion on our testing of federal programs. And this is a clean opinion. This is a good opinion. And then on page 147 and 148 is all of the federal funds that were included in those testing and the population of the testing, I should say. So this includes social services funds, the county's funds, school board funds. And as you see, things starting to pop up showing COVID-19 funding. The prefix COVID-19, you'll see a lot more of that in your fiscal year 21 audit report. And then that finding that I noted is detailed on page 150. It's pretty common finding for a smaller locality to have that anyway. So, but it is detailed there for you. Any questions on the overall audit report before I move to the handout and the slides?
Just on the fund balance, I think last year we were hovering around about 18%. What did it come out to? I know we got better.
I've got that coming up, but yeah, you were.
Wait till you get to it.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, on the 10-year trend information in the slides, move back over. I believe that's the next slide from where I left off. You can see the annual growth rate across the right there, and the total revenues for the general fund have grown about 2.3% per year over that 10-year period. And expenditures have also grown about 2.3% per year over that period. Various items increased and decreased throughout there. There was a sizable increase this year due to the tax increase, as well as the trash fee increase. The intergovernmental revenues is your state and federal grant money. They're pretty flat this year. I expect to see an increase in that in the next year or two with the COVID grants and things that are coming out for localities. After that, I would expect to see a sharp decline in that. So just be careful not to get used to having that additional grant money coming and operating on that, because it will dry up after a few years. I believe that'll be fairly similar to the ARA funds that we had quite a while back. So I do expect an increase and then a sharp decline there in those state and federal funds. A little bit of increase there in the public safety with various items purchased, but overall, keeping the total expenditures below 2.3% growth per year is pretty good control of overall expenditures. And as I mentioned, 2018 and 2019, you all had more than $1 million loss in each of those years. This year, you're about 1.5 million to the good once you factor in debt service.
So on education, for example,
Sure.
that's just local required effort and above local required effort, or is it above?
That amount for education is what you all gave to the school board, not including the debt service they paid.
So it's what we're required to do plus what we gave additional.
Correct. The debt service, it reverts back to the general fund and is reported in debt service of the general fund, but yes. And then new this year, I wanted to kind of provide a 5-year trend as well. Very similar, same numbers there, the last 5 years, but sometimes you can see a little different picture. We look at the last 5 years versus the last 10 years. So you can see the total revenues have increased about 4.7% per year, with heavy increase again in 2020 for the tax increase. And what that means to me is that if you look back at the 10-year trend, a lot of that increase has come over the last year, and you can see how flat revenues were for a long time. We look at that 10-year increase there. A little bit of a similar trend there with 3% operating expenditures over the 5-year. They kept quite flat there for a while. I know the debt service increase just before 2016 was a significant reason that you all started to have a decline in fund balance. The next slide here has current information. The pie charts here from the current year revenues and current year expenditures. It's a good visual of where the money comes from and where it goes. To give you an idea, your property taxes in the bright blue there on the left, 53% this year. It was 51% in 2019, so very comparable. Again, that's the most significant part of your revenue base. For expenditures, the general government was the same 19% this year as it was the prior year. Or sorry, that's same 8%. The public safety was 23%, same as prior year. The health and welfare was 19% this year, and the education was 27%, or not 29% this year, 27% in the prior year. So all the numbers are very comparable from this year to last year.
So When you talk education on this chart, does it include the library, WCC support, that
It
kind
does.
of stuff?
It does not include the library. It does include the WCC support and the same amount I talked about with the school board, the required amount plus what you get in addition. All right, and then the next slide, the review of county reserves, where we were talking about a little bit before. You've got that fund balance, and we rely on that unassigned fund balance to see where you really stand. Several years ago, I found an article from GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officer Association. So nationwide, they had this recommendation that counties in their general fund should have at least 2 months unassigned fund balance set aside. It's kind of a minimum, but it is a countrywide national number. So obviously different counties have different tax bases and different things to take into that, but it's the best number I can give you as a baseline, essentially. We generally like it to be more than that, probably at least 20%. But overall, that's a good baseline because it's a national average to look at. As you can see in 2020, you all were just above that at 18.5%. So compared to the prior year at 15.9%, which was just below. Looking where you are at 18.5% this year, you're still down quite a bit from the 2014 year where you're at 24.8%. So you can see where that decline started, and that's where you all started talking about the tax increase, I believe. But you're much better than where you were back in 2011 and prior when it was 11%. I know it was below that before then. So still come a long way financially. And now that you're at 18.5, I feel pretty good about where you are. So in good shape. It's really impressive overall to see the total net expenditures below 2% increase per year over that time period. School board contribution is less than 1% increase over that time period. And seeing your fund balance grow at 6.5% from back in 2011 is great. So definitely come a long way. I know when I look back at these presentations a few years, it was quite a bit lower fund balance. So much better financial position. As I did mention, that fund balance does include the accrued receivable for your property taxes or first property taxes that you all extend that deadline due to COVID-19. So some debt trend information. As you can see there, pretty much in line with last year. Total debt was 38.9 this last year, and it was 39.5 this year. I always want to make sure that you're aware that debt trend information includes more than your bonded debt. So it includes your VRS net pension liability that they assign to you all. It includes the sick leave and vacation leave and that calculation as well. So more than just what you're bonded and required to pay. It's your financial debt. I include that way so you can compare it to the APA, the state average, which is there in blue. So you can see the state average, or the right below the mountain blue. You all had 2,543 per capita, and the state average was 3,991. So well below that, as it should be, farther from the DC area, but it's still good to be below the state average. It's the same number as last year because the most recent data I have is 2019. So that's why there's the same number reported for the state. The tax assessment trend information. Overall, it looks pretty flat in total because of how flat the real estate assessment has been over the 10 years. But it is good to see some growth in the machinery and tools there, as well as the personal property and public utilities. The significant estimates and the pension, I know that I mentioned this a few times. I always want to point out this estimate is in your financials, reported as debt for the county and the school board. But I've got the pieces here now so you can kind of see. And this is the sensitivity analysis so you can see how much of an estimate it is, essentially. It's reported in your financials at 6.75% discount rate. So they're right in the middle. But you can see how much of a variance it is if it was reported at 7.75. or 5.75, based on what the stock market does, essentially. So last year we reported this at 7%. BRS came out and made a change saying that they did 6.75%. So when they decreased that, your liability went up, and that's the same across the state. When you look at the total for the county, it's about a $1.2 million increase to that liability based on that change they made. Overall, including the school board, is about $2 million increase total. So what does that mean? It means you haven't done anything wrong. You're paying your payments on time. There's really nothing you've done wrong. It's just the state is changing their estimates and their allocations. I do think you'll have an increase in your rate. I think you may have already seen about an 8.5% increase in your contribution rate in 21. So you might see increased rates coming. That's probably the most significant impact you would see from it. Another significant estimate, the OPEB items. The health insurance OPEB is the liability that's calculated by the actuarial you all hire. It is related to the allowing the retirees to have health insurance. You also have the group life health insurance and the health insurance credit to the school board. Those are part of VRS and they're considered OPEB liabilities as well. Very similar, the amount in the middle there is the reported liability. Because your health insurance for retirees liability is not funded, the discount rate is much lower than the VRS plans.
When you look at municipalities and counties across the state, do most still carry retirees or don't their plans?
When this standard came out, there was probably several that either decided to move them off of the plan or decided to get them their own rate. If they have their own rate, which is going to be significantly more than the blended rate, then you don't have to have the liability, so it doesn't report that way. In total, there's probably a lot of localities that just said we want to keep this benefit for this is a actuarial liability, and it's not a liability we're going to pay cash for. You are paying it by the virtue of increased premiums, but most localities decided to keep going with it as a good benefit for the staff.
But we have a blended rate, not separate rate for retiree and active employee. So ours is a blended rate.
Yeah. And they may pay part of it, but because you're in one pool, it would be lower if it was younger people in the pool.
How many, do we know approximately how many retirees we have on the plan and how many employees we have?
Do you know how many?
We got close to 100 employees on the plan, but I don't know how many retirees.
Okay,
We can find that out for you.
that'd be great, thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, and the next section here is each year we are required to do some testing on the VRS system. This is a report that we sent to the state based on that testing. It's a good, clean report for both the county and the school board, no issues with it. And I think, Carl, if you click on those PDF links, it should take you to them. Hopefully that worked right. If not, they are in the packets here for the hard copies. But yeah, so that's a good report. As I always kind of mention, that we also were told by the state that if they just take Fairfax and Fairfax passes, the whole state passes, but we're still required to do the testing for everybody. So we went ahead and did that as we're required. And it's a good thing to make sure that the people within VRS have the right information. So all good testing there for the county and schools. On the next couple pages, each year during our audit, we find a few things that might be compliance related or transaction related that probably not material to the overall financial statement, but would be good items to clean up. So we have some recommendations here. A couple of them have been repeat items. I know the social services was discussed, and there was some confusion on the year there because their fiscal year is actually different than the county's fiscal year. So we just recommended that be monitored and additional appropriations be asked for if needed for that. One of the newer ones here is the construction projects. with the industrial development project. During our testing, although the whole project was below the state requirement for a bid bond, payment bond, performance bond, we still recommend having those, particularly in a time of an uncertain economy such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Having those securities will always be a good best practice. A few other small items here, a couple things. So services that are very small dollar and state compliance related, but overall, not a lot that I was significantly concerned about. Pretty good there. If you have any questions on those, I'll be happy to take them. Or if you have questions later, you can surely send me an email and discuss as well. The next couple of pages here are related to the upcoming GASB pronouncements. Fiduciary activities will come into play this coming year. It was supposed to be in place for 2020, but it was delayed due to COVID-19. And that will basically just bring in the activity funds into this county audit report. Activity funds are the funds that are held at the schools, like the high school and such. So they will be included. I don't see a whole lot of impact coming for you all in this. Their leases requirement could impact some long rental agreements, but I don't see a significant impact, typically because the calculation does not impact the bottom line very much. A lot of changes to the reporting and disclosure items, but not financially. In the last few pages, each year we send a letter to you all to let you know how the audit went. We talked about the various estimates, most significant being the net pension liability and net OPEB. Overall, the audit went really well. The financial position improved. So I was really happy to do that and get it all wrapped up in an unusual year. With the pandemic starting, we didn't come in for field work in the spring. The staff uploaded everything to us, so that was really appreciate that. That helped keep my staff safe, keep your staff safe as well. So that was great. And then in the fall, we did come in and we were here for a few days and did our testing as social distance possible. And it was a challenge, but we did that. And the whole process went really well considering everything. So I appreciate all the effort each year, and particularly this year with the challenges we had. So everybody was very helpful in getting into the good audit, better financial position, and overall good. Any questions?
Good job.
Thank you all. If you think of anything, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call.
Mr. Chair, Scott and his team are extremely helpful to us and I guess user-friendly, that's kind of a strange way to put it, but and they've been very good at teaching us about the things that we need to do to get better. So we appreciate all that you guys do. You're non-disruptive to us when you come in, but very precise and very good advice that you've given to us that has helped us to get to this position that we're at, and we appreciate it.
I appreciate that. We really view it as a partnership, if you will. If we can help you, it'll help us, and it works out great for everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Safe travel.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Hall, Mr. Treasurer.
Hey, gentlemen,
Hey,
ladies, I'll be very brief. Scott's giving you all the numbers that you want.
I think it's a presentation, or we need to set.
yeah, we're supposed to do the presentations next. I think Tracy going that.
No, but we're supposed to accept the audit.
She's finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought that's what you were asking me.
no, it was as a presentation, or we got to make a motion to set.
On the audit? I don't know, you know, Mitch?
It's past the policy.
Let's do it. Just-
Yeah, you
I
can
make a
do it.
motion, we accept the audit.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hall.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as I said, I'll be very brief. I know you had plenty of numbers thrown at you, so you don't want any more, but several questions from board members and administration with everything going on with the virus and such, concerned about how collections are coming in. So I just thought I'd give you some brief numbers. Looks like we're very, very fortunate. guess you have the numbers in your package. 2019, we collected 81.24% at this time of year through January, from April through January. This year, 2020, so far, 21 now, 83.78. So personal property, we actually have collected a little bit more percentage-wise than we did last year. Real estate is very close as well. In 2019, we collected 91.17% through January 2020. Through January 21, we've collected 90.98, just a slight decrease, but all in all, I think we're very good. Balance in real estate through January was $2,022,000 receivable. That's pretty typical. We should collect about half of that, before year end. Same thing with personal property. They had $1,194,000. We should collect probably the way historically half of that as well. And so we keep those kind of balances on receivables pretty much historically anyway. Additional collection efforts by the treasurer's office. We've continued on what's been going on for quite some time. Real estate accounts with balances 3 years or older are turned over to collection attorneys. They have been a little bit slow about pursuing some of these collections just because of the pandemic and not pressuring folks as probably they have in the past. According to them, their numbers that they have collected $71,460 in the last 12 months for Grayson County. And we just recently sent in a file to them that totaled $963,000, with those accounts being 3 years and older. So we're still active working with them. They're still active working with us. We proceed that as has been done in the past. 91 properties have been advertised by them as proceeding to sell, so that we have properties in process now, anywhere from a year it takes to get to sale. A lot of these folks, of course, will pay before it gets to that point. Many of these properties are people who passed away and waiting for heirs to take care of the property. DMV stops we use for delinquent property, personal property. If they're not paying their taxes on their automobiles, we issue a stop. We get a lot of, when those stops go out, we get a lot of people coming in to pay. Water cutoffs, you know about that. We, after about 2 weeks delinquent, we look at those, but of course we work with public service to take care of those. We have about 450 water accounts. Solid waste fees. Now, maybe some confusion sometimes about trash and solid waste. The trash fees are the annual amounts that we bill, the $216. That's a little bit different than what works through public service, which is the delinquent solid waste fees. That's for the containers that people have, mostly businesses and such, the large containers. So it's a little bit different process, but nonetheless, we're continuing on with the same processes in the past. We do issue warrants for delinquent trash fees, those annual fees, after they become so delinquent. So all in all, we're doing pretty much the same thing. Collections are coming in very well, all things considered. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it automatic when you're delinquent 3 years, 36 months, does it automatically go to collections?
Yeah, I think that number of years was set by the board some time ago.
Why do we have some that are older? Why do we say 3 years and older? Do we have accounts that have been sitting out there for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, there's not been collected. I mean, they're still in the process and they never haven't gotten to that point. Again, don't know why that the collection attorneys haven't moving more aggressively on some of those, but we have some.
So that leads to my second question. When it's turned over for collections, what is the policy and the procedures they follow to ensure fairness for that group of people? And specifically, recently I had two constituents who knocked on my door, and one said, I'm 3 years behind in my taxes, and they tell me they're gonna sell my property. Why don't you go talk to Mr. So-and-so on the other end of my road? He ain't paid taxes in 7 years, and nobody's gonna sell his property. I don't understand how that happens.
We're trying to clean up some of that. I had a long list of accounts that were suspended. I don't know why, but the collection people have been told not to collect. I have no idea why. I told them.
Who would have the authority to?
I went through that list and I said, I see no reason. There was a few that had paid subsequent to that, but I told them not to hold any of those, to go keep them active and pursue them.
Pete, who would have the authority to do that?
I guess the treasurer at that time. Okay. And I don't want to accuse or defend anything. They're just, matter of fact, they were there.
Well, I don't want to appear to be hard-nosed and not understanding that sometimes people fall on hard times. But,
Yeah, that could,
but one of the irregularities that I've heard in my tenure as a board member in the community has to do with collecting taxes. And all I would say is I think we ought to be real clear on what the guidelines are. And frankly, they ought to be enforced. Because if those two people are telling the truth, then if I were the guy you're gonna sell my farm after 3 years, I'd take you to court. Say, well, you ain't collecting his, why you after me? What's the bias here? So I just think we need, and I know you're trying to clean up and do some things, and I applaud it. But that's
I understand your
that's
point.
a lingering issue.
I understand your point, and we're trying to work on those things and clean that up.
Okay.
Make sure that everyone's treated fairly, but we follow the rules. My answer is no. When someone calls in, can I have this exception, that exception? I tell them no. I hate to, it goes against my nature, but the ladies at work call me a softie when I come in. I'm trying to harden up as much as I can.
No, that is a tough situation.
It is, and
Find
I
yourself
don't,
in, no
it's very difficult, but the answer is the same for everybody. Everybody should be treated the same, and we should not be selling properties after 3 years that have been sitting out there longer. It is a long process for the attorneys to go through, and the courts, and particularly the courts have been slower this past year as well. But I'm trying to develop a good relationship with them, and so they understand for Grayson County or where I stand, and that we move as expeditiously as possible on most of those things. But it's a long, drawn out process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your efforts.
Is the agency we're using, I think that we're using one that was in Richmond for this sort of stuff. Is that who you're still using? Or
Right, it's the same group, tax authority, consulting service.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're in Henrico.
Is there anything that, from your perspective, that we could help you with on this specific issue? You're comfortable with the policy, it sounds like. It's just a matter of the collection people doing it and you staying on it. Is there?
That's it, getting a good relation with them, and so they understand where we're coming from and what we, our goals. And it's a work in progress.
Right. Not a question for Pete, I don't think, but it seems to me when we're from the county perspective, whether it's the PSA or the administration, we've got what I think on the standards here, it looks like water cutoff, we've got as it's stated here, water cutoff is ordered after 2 weeks of not paying. But trash, they get 60 days after they get the second notice of non-payment. And it seems to me that we're if in fact that's true of how it's written, it seems like we're taking a pretty hard line on the water, which everybody needs, and we're not taking a hard line on the trash. Do we have a bit of a disconnect on the being consistent in our,
I think we need to look at that. I'm glad you pointed that out. It does need to be consistent.
yeah, seems like that's,
Pardon me? Oh, it is?
The trash, the solid waste.
well, but also the PSA
Yeah.
interim director.
On the water, yeah, we work in conjunction.
No, I know, but I think maybe we put that on the agenda to talk about, is that the right approach? I think we talked about it in the past, but.
I think he has some comments
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
I have today.
We did bring up the difference between the annual trash fees, the $216, and then the public works, which was the solid waste fee. And that's what we're talking about. But yeah, it is more relaxed policy on the solid waste. We don't have to pursue it quite as aggressively as we do the water account. You really have to stay on top of it, and that is there's a lot of work to that. The people moving in and out so much, but there's not as many as we mentioned the account, number of counts and so on. And Public Works may elaborate a little bit on how they go about collecting, but we send them, it usually takes a couple of months to get them to go visit and look at those dumpsters and talk to the folks that have the dumpster. But it's not as big a collection problem as the water fee is, and I guess that's why we have a more aggressive policy in pursuing those.
Okay.
And that is solid waste versus trash fee.
Now, I'm looking at it just from a consistency of when do we decide to terminate an account or move it into collections? That I think we got to be fair, I think, in how we approach it. We've got leverage because everybody needs water, so I get that, part of it too, but it just seems like we might have an inconsistency in the application of that, of collection.
And I was
That's
told-
not his issue, I think that's the PSA and the board.
Just for your information, we only had 6 water cutoffs this month, so it's not very many.
No,
And
that's
it
right.
does include the treasurer department too, because there's some state regulations I found out today on deposits, and you have to keep those cutoffs pretty close to what you got in the deposit in case you don't get paid.
It may be just a matter of understanding, what our left and right limits are.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I found that out today too.
good. Thanks. Thanks, Pete.
Okay,
Thank you, Pete.
thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. See you. Stay well.
All right. Ms. Tracy.
Before Tracy starts, I just want to let the board know how excited we are about this night and the next step occurring in this process. I remember when I first got here and made my first trip out to as a county administrator, I should say, out to the western part of the county, and the warm greeting we got out there and the strong request to try to reach out and help rejuvenate the western part of the county. We worked on that. We've worked on that for a couple of years. One of the things that has happened that has changed the whole situation is having Supervisor Rebels come into the role that he's in. He is committed to the people, as are the other board members, but he's committed to the people of his county, and that plus the addition of Tracy Cornett and the will of the people out in the western part of the county and their interest in getting us to this day, all combined to make it so that we're here to show you the next step in what is an ongoing process. This is not a done deal. It's just some great work that's been done by our team, but the Virginia Tech folks have just done an outstanding job of what they're about to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy.
And if Carl gets my presentation up, I have some things I'd like to show you. I am very excited to be here tonight to share this presentation with you ladies and gentlemen. This has been one of the more exciting parts of my job, and I have worked very closely with Supervisor Rebels, and we have a lot to present to you, and I'm going to be respectful of your time and move on just as quickly as I can here. July 7th of 2020, last summer, we received the DEQ Brownfields report. I have it with me. It's in the neighborhood of 30 pages long. And that was done grant funded. And the Department of Environmental Quality went into the old Mount Rogers School and found out some things that we knew and some things that we didn't. And one of the things, of course, they discovered is, especially in the 1950s, the brick addition of the building, there was mold, asbestos, and lead in the paint, especially in that addition. They gave us some history on the building. If you may or may not know, the rock structure that you see there was built by the WPA in about 1932. The addition was built in the 1950s, the red brick portion. And then there is a shed, which you will see later on the back, that was built in the 1990s. And the roof that you see on it, you all paid for last year. That was put on last summer. The next slide will show you another thing that they found. In Western Grayson County, we have in the neighborhood of 250,000 folks that go to that portion of the county each year. And those, there's a list, I'm not going to read them to you, you can read, but you can see what all is up there for folks to go and to visit. Grayson Highlands State Park goes back and forth. Some years it'll be the most visited state park in Virginia. Some years it's the second most visited state park in Virginia. In 2019, it was the second most. I look for it to take number one again this year. Southwest Virginia has rebounded tourism-wise faster than any other section, any other region of Virginia, because we do have such outdoor recreation opportunities and people have been able to come here and social distance so much. That's also been reflected by our vacation homeowners. And they have talked about just an explosion of folks coming here to visit starting about last summer. As you know, there's not enough places in Grayson County when these visitors come for them to spend money. We do not have an official visitor center. We have a couple of small ones that are not, but we do not have an official one. So one of the things that the Brownfields report suggested was that the rock structure could be salvaged, that the brick addition, the 1950s addition, needed to be demolished, and that the rock structure should be repurposed as a cultural heritage, especially musical cultural heritage center, and with the possibility of a visitor center in there as well. So in case it's been a while since you've been up to White Top to see the school, I thought I'd show you some pictures of the way that it is now. As you can see, the addition has been vandalized. Our maintenance department has done a good job of going in and boarding up some of those busted windows. And the vandalism, I think, seems to have slowed down a little bit in recent months. And the next slide will show you the playground equipment there is in excellent condition. It is used. It's the only playground in that area of the county. The closest one next to that is in Lansing, North Carolina. But I chose this picture to put in because I wanted to show you, if you could go behind those bushes that you see right there at the front, that's where those windows are that were in the last photo that I showed you. So you can see the proximity of the playground equipment to the broken windows. Yes.
Tracy, let me make a comment about vandalism. You can walk directly out of the brick addition straight into the old building. In the brick addition, urinals are torn off the walls, windows are broken, light fixtures are ripped down, drop ceilings are gone. You walk into the old rock section, has not been touched. And I have to tell you, because I heard it out of the mouth of a grandmother who caught her grandson down there doing what he shouldn't have been doing on the red brick. And her message to him was, if you touch that rock building, you won't live to be 60. There's that kind of sentiment in that community, Rugby and White Top,
Yeah.
for that school, that old school, because many of the grandparents, men, built that building. Sorry, Tracy.
That's fine. You're still in my thunder. The next picture will show you the storage shed that you couldn't see from the beginning. It was built in the 1990s. It is structurally sound. Main problem with it right now is it's mainly just full of junk. I'll show you a picture of the inside of that section here in just a minute. The next building is going to show you the gym, and if you look at that table, you can see the slope in the floor. You can see a little bit into the kitchen. I didn't take pictures in the kitchen. I try not to go in there. And then the next picture is another picture of the gym, showing you the buckled floors. There is a leak in the roof. There is mold in that section of the building. If you go on to the next picture, that's showing you a classroom. And in another vision of this picture, it shows you the ceilings are, the paint is coming off the ceilings. And there's lead in that paint, asbestos in all the tile. And Carl, you'll show the next one. There's the ceiling picture. All the classrooms in the addition look like this, all of them. Okay. The next picture, well, this will show you just some of the storage shed. There has been a little bit of vandalism, but we have it pretty much locked up now, so that it's okay. It is full of junk. But it is strong. If you look at the middle picture, you can see, you know, it's a cinder block building and it's not all that old. It's in very good condition. Bottom right picture shows you that there's plumbing there, which is excellent. And so this could be easily salvaged, okay? So I've shown you what is now. The next slide is going to take you to the original structure. And as Tom said, I want you to really notice the difference. So these photos are coming from the original rock 1932 building. And yes, it needs some work. It does have some asbestos in the tile in it as well. But I just hope you can notice the difference. Look at the next picture. Here's the windows that Tom was telling you about. They are beautiful. They're huge, lots of natural light that is coming into that area of the building. And just like Tom said, it amazes me, not one has been broken. All kinds of windows busted out of the 1950s structure. Not one of these windows has been touched. It's amazing. It really is. Okay, and then the next picture will just show you another view. See the difference there in this building and the condition of the park, but it is in very good condition. And then the next picture is just going to give you another view of the rock structure in the 1950s addition that needs to be demolished. And so I'm going to introduce some folks to you next, and I wanted to save most of my time for them. We have had a grant for $20,000 paid for by the Department of Environmental Quality that has allowed the CDAC team, that stands for Community Design Assistance Center at Virginia Tech, to come in and design a plan for us showing what this structure can be, what its potential is. We had a group of stakeholders, folks from the White Top community, and some other people who were very well aware of funding opportunities to do something with the structure. And we met, 3 or 4 times to give our input and talk about what we would like to see and what the community would like to see. And then Nick Proctor and Elizabeth Gilboy are joining us tonight, and they took their design students from Virginia Tech, and they have come up with a conceptual drawing, and they're going to share that with you at this point.
All right, thank you, Tracy. We appreciate that introduction. With me tonight is Elizabeth Gilboy, who's the director of the Design Center. We also have Joey and Madison, who are 5th-year undergraduate students in landscape architecture. And we also have Maren and Caitlin, who are recent graduates of the interior design program here at Virginia Tech. Also involved with the project is Joe Marisi, who is with Cardno that you can see down here. They're the environmental consultant on the project. Of course, DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality. And then also Lisa Tucker, who's the program chair for interior design here at Virginia Tech. And so we'll try and keep this as brief as we can without going too fast through it. But let's see if this thing will advance. Okay. And Tracy, hop in at any point if we need to pause on anything. But in summary, is that the design process is that we met back in October for a stakeholder input session. We met on site 2 times before that, and we were able to hear from the community and various stakeholders associated with the school, different design ideas that would ultimately help propel this project forward. We took that input and we developed 2 preliminary designs for the site as a whole, which is the landscape architecture portion of the project, as well as redevelopment opportunities for both the Rock School portion and the storage building on the west side of the building on the back side. So we developed 2 concepts for both of those. And then just Tuesday of this week, I've updated the dates, but back on Tuesday, we presented the final design for that. And so then we're happy to have the opportunity to share that final design to everybody tonight. From here is that we're going to develop a final report, which will capture the entire breadth of the project, which will cover all of the supporting drawings that helped come to where we are. So, and then there'll of course be digitals for all of the drawing sets so that you can put it into grant applications or anything, which I hear there's good news on the grant front that Tracy was able to share. So a little bit of a background of the Community Design Assistance Center is that we're an outreach of the College of Architecture and Urban Studies. We hire students, and in the case of this project, recent graduates of the design school to help develop conceptual level design for communities, community groups, and in this case, county governments, to get ideas onto paper that does not include construction drawings or cost estimates. But we do realize that there's a vast, there's a lot of potential to be able to have a graphic representation of designs in order to be more competitive for grants. It's also an opportunity for the community to come together early in the project to get on the same page, develop consensus, have that organic positive push and pull to get everything going. So that's what this project captures. And then after this, we'll turn over everything to Tracy and to the county to pursue those next steps. This is just an overview of the site. A lot of the pictures that Tracy was showing was kind of here, and then also looking down here on the point. This big old loop, of course, is 58, and then Schoolhouse Road coming here on the south side of the site. So we developed a site master plan for the entire extent of what is contained in this green color line. You can see the storage building here, which is included in the designs, as well as the original schoolhouse here. And then for this particular project, we have been operating under the assumption that the 1950s portion will not be repurposed, that it will be demolished, but that these other 2 structures will remain. So with that oversight, I'll turn it over to Joey or Madison, who I believe are going to walk us through the site master plan, and then we'll transition to the interior portion of the building, which Maren will walk us through. let me see, can I still do this? All right, so I'll just flip through the slides for everybody and go from there. Clear. All right. All right.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Like Nick said, my name is Joey, and I was working on the landscape portion of this project with Madison, and excited to share what we came up with. Just to orient you a little bit, this view is turned a little bit from what you saw in the last image, and we have 58 right here. And with Helton Creek running in the back. The original stone schoolhouse is here, and as well as the storage building that's existing as well. So to kind of take you through what we've done here, we first have a parking lot here. We have 33 total spaces, and we also have 4 that are horse trailer compatible. And we've made sure that there's ample room for them to maneuver in there as a place to park, and we're understanding that there's a need for that in the area. As you enter the site, there is a water fountain kind of station here. We've got a spigot where you can water your horses and get drinking water as well as yourself or for dogs or something. And we thought that was a nice little addition. As you come in here, we have a stage L, a wooden stage, and then we have a little concrete apron here. And there's an event lawn. So that could be, all of those things could be used for summer concerts, holiday festivals, things of that nature. Going around the entirety of the site is about a 1/4 mile path. We're understanding that this area is very mountainous, and so it's pretty important as a pretty flat site that we give people a place that they can come and walk, to ride bikes, get exercise. So as you walk along the path, you come to the playground here, which has been expanded a little bit using that wonderful existing playground equipment, and also could be supplemented with some natural or play or educational play pieces. As you continue along the path here, we have a Virginia Love sign, and we position that so it can be seen from the road, as well as having the stone school building in the background. And so there's a little space where people can take pictures and really interact with that. As you continue along the path down here in the corner of the site, we have a Welcome to White Top sign, and that would really greet motorists and people as they come through the area. And you can also grab a glimpse of the school building in the back. Continuing along, we're understanding that we want things to be low maintenance, but we thought that and so as a result of that, we have this native wildflower garden, and that again requires very little maintenance, but would be a really nice addition, good place to sit, and it's also a space where things like lavender can be grown, where it's sort of they can be used for crafts or activities that can bring the community together. As you continue along the back here, we have a vehicular entrance and a turnaround sort of for a dumpster here, garbage and utility entrance. And that empties into this courtyard, which is one of the pieces of the site. And really ties the school building with the storage building. And so in here, we have some seating along the edges so that people can still walk through the center, but it becomes a great place to have some lunch, say hi to people. There's lighting overhead, and it becomes a really nice space to kind of tie the two buildings together. Up to the top here, along the creek, we have a wooden creek overlook. And so this is sort of a wooden structure that would kind of go up and over the flood wall and berm that are here next to the creek, and be a really nice place for people to kind of escape into the woods, just listen to the water. So with that, I think that it pretty much covers the plan. We can dive into the experience of the site a little bit more. Let's see if I can, there we go, whoops. All right, so this is actually, if I can go back here for a second, I forgot to do this. That previous image was taken from this number 1 perspective, so showing the school and the love sign here in plan. So as you can see, this is a view from that angle. You have the walking path that goes around the entirety of the site. You can see people enjoying that on a nice spring day. We've got cyclists and people that are just leisurely walking. That brings you past the love sign here, which it can be modified to be very personal and should be to Grayson County and to White Top, and it could reflect the musical heritage, the natural heritage, etc. And so you have a place where you can see people taking pictures and kind of climbing on it, and then you have that beautiful school building in the back there, as well as the playground. So it really becomes a nice place to gather. And with that, I think I will hand it off to Madison. She will walk through the rest of the site. Oops.
All right, so hi, I'm Madison. And these next 2 perspectives, this one will be taken by the parking lot. So as you're entering the site, this is a idea of what it would look like during a summer festival, having the walking track open, having a stage that there could be a shade structure, or also something to amplify the sound outwards during those summer months. And you can begin to see, the courtyard in the back, the ramp that takes you up to make up for the grade going into that schoolhouse, and then the lawn and everything here. So this is just a really nice space altogether, and a nice greeting and way to enter the site. And then on the next page, this gives you an idea of what it could look like in the winter. So one of the things with this being such a iconic spot for Christmas trees and just the Christmas culture, we wanted to show what a sort of Christmas festival could feel and look like. So having something like horse-drawn carriages, or it could just be like a tractor, like a hayride, taking people through in the winter, and that Christmas tree can get decorated to represent the culture. And then just Christmas lights all over, so it could become this really nice Christmas festival loop. And then the stage is large enough to accommodate like school concerts, to have like a whole Christmas music festival, and food trucks or tents could be set up where you could get hot cocoa and that sort of thing. And then the next page. And then this one is a look at what that courtyard space could feel like. So we put flagstone down to kind of represent the stone work that's already happening with the building. And then this image is taken from when you'd be leaving that sort of native sensory garden and entering the space. So the creek walk would be right here, and you'd have the option to wander into the courtyard in this more active space, or go up and over that berm and have more of that reflective, secluded moment. And then this garage door has been kept so you could walk into the space, and it really becomes this seamless space between the inside and the outside. And then last thing I'll mention here is that the flood wall that's existing can be used to continue the tradition the community already has, which is like each class to graduate would paint things on that wall. So we were thinking that could be a tradition that's been continued, and that they can adopt it over the years to paint new things every year, or just keep adding it, and it works as sort of a timeline of this space. And then these are just precedent imageries to kind of show materials and the sort of feel that this space is going for. And then these are more precedent imageries too. This first one up here is on the northeast side of the building, where the runoff from the roof can be collected into these rain tanks. And then kids can come in and they can get like little pails to collect the water in and put it through one of these educational flexible play structures so they can begin to engage with the natural elements on the site and maybe learn something out of it too. And having these more ecologically focused things like this that collect rainwater and the permeable paving can help win more of those ecological grants that focus on being more sustainable and also the educational side of it. And then some of the other features, we have options for putting sort of stepstone walkways through those native gardens to get people more up close and personal with the planting going on there. This is the water spigot Joey was talking about, where there could be a spigot, I guess, that comes out of that to be watered for horses, and then also different sorts of options for water bottles or people. And then some ideas of some natural play elements, things that would just be really cheap and easy to make and then also just be used and representative of the natural culture and history in White Top. And then this is just the sort of type of creek overlook we're looking for, something just natural and cozy. And it could have stairs that lead you down into the water so people could touch that too. The path that goes around, and then the stage, which you saw in the last perspective. And then these next two slides show some of the planting options. We made sure, as Joey mentioned, to pick all native plants so that they could be self-seeding. They could attract pollinators and birds that can come in and they can spread their seeds even further throughout the site. So the only thing they would have to do really is just come through and mow the lawn every once in a while. And we even included this sort of grass, which only really needs to be mowed like once or twice a year. So it should all be pretty low maintenance and again could help win those ecological grants. And then on the next page, you'll see a tree palette, which has some of the more culturally important trees to the area. So it can really just help nail in that sense of place where people recognize that they're in White Top and this is what White Top feels like. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the interiors. Thank you all.
Alrighty. Hey guys, I'm Marin. I'm on the interior side of this team, and so I'm going to kind of walk you guys through both the schoolhouse and the what we were referring to as the storage building out back. So this is the floor plan of the stone schoolhouse. This entrance down at A is the primary entrance, the original, the one that's still there now. And then over here at P on the side is the exit that kind of goes into the brick building right now. So as you saw in one of the renderings for the landscape team, there's the idea to put a ramp on the outside to make that a secondary entrance or a ADA wheelchair entrance, just to kind of give a second option. So down here in the bottom left corner is the room that you saw a lot of pictures from, where there was a cone. I believe it was a science room originally, and we've designated that as a snack bar, reception, and sort of like information and welcome room. So it would have a little snack bar, which is something that Tracy mentioned being really interested in when we met with her back in, I guess, August. A little seating area, some small tables for some additional seating. At E, there would be a wall with a lot of information and pamphlets and brochures. And then at I and H on the far wall, that's where we would have some retail and kind of like gifts and local goods for purchase. And at the snack part at D, that would also act as a sort of reception desk and welcome desk. Up in the room right above that, in the upper left corner, is a Heritage and Culture Museum room. So that's going to focus on more of the history of the area and the culture, with the next room being the music museum room, which will have more of that music history and displays pertaining to the music and artists of the area. And then down in the bottom right corner, you'll see just some restrooms, which plays off the existing plumbing that's already there. So on the next page, we've got some renderings. So this is a little rendering of kind of what we envisioned for the snack bar, something pretty minimal, but would allow some low maintenance snacks and refreshments to be sold, with that window behind it being a way for people to kind of interact with the person behind the reception as soon as they walk in the door. Right now, it's just a completely flat wall with no view into that main room. So by creating this little cutout, it makes it a lot easier for people to realize, okay, this is where I can go to get my information as soon as they walk in the building. So we've got some bar seating at that little snack bar, a little reception desk, which is slightly lower, and then some seating with views to the outside. This is a little render of the kind of retail side of the room. So just some shelving where you can have books and maybe some locally made ceramics and things like that. And we decided to incorporate in some of the lockers from that hallway, some of the original lockers, as maybe a way to add some more display space. So maybe as time goes on, those can be propped open and have like sweatshirts and things like that hanging in them. So it becomes kind of a fun detail that reflects on the original use of the building, but it also could be functional as well. So here we've got a view from right when you walk in the door into the retail reception snack bar room. So you can see how easy it would be to walk in and just kind of turn your head and be like, oh, okay, here's somebody that I could talk to, ask questions to. And so we were really excited about that addition just because it would make the use of the space so much easier. The next perspective 7, which says our common threads, is an idea for the Heritage and Culture Museum room. It was brought to our attention that quilting and crafts and things like that were really popular in the area. So this was an idea for kind of a art and display piece that would allow a lot of different people to have their hands on it and kind of contribute a little portion to it as a quilt. And then around that, more photos and just opportunities for displays that could rotate. Some would obviously could be permanent, but this would just be a neat spot for people to walk in and kind of learn more about the area and kind of consolidate that specific room into the heritage and culture. In the bottom left corner, perspective 8, we have a view of a topographic relief map that we envisioned being in that main hallway, which now where that map is, that's where the lockers currently are. And we thought this would be a neat opportunity to really present and in a neat way the sheer height and elevation changes of the area, which is so important to the recreation and the tourism, is all those mountains. So this would be both an educational piece, but also just a really neat, vast way to fill this wall space and be educational. And then down in perspective 9, we have an image of the Wall of Fame. You guys have a lot of music and artists that come from the area. It's a really, really rich history. And so this would be a great place to display those artists and musicians that come out of the area. And this room could also display instruments, have more rotating displays. Maybe instrument makers can display some of their creations and things like that. So that room would be completely designated to the musical history of the area. This next portion is all of the storage building, the multi-purpose building, and what we've decided would be a neat use for that. So this building is a little bit smaller. The main flexible event space is about 830 square feet. It's a 20 by 42 space, so plenty of room. And up in the top, we have left some room for storage and mechanical, and then restrooms on the far right wall for when events are in the space. And then this main area, which has the stage and the flexible event space, would really be a neat opportunity, or provide a neat opportunity for a lot of different type of events to go in here. So there's a stage for musical events. There's also plenty of flat space for maybe booths and little events and showcases. So this would be a really neat functional space. So this is showing the layout if there was to be an event. So just rows of chairs with plenty of circulation room around it. This would fit approximately 50 seats, give or take, obviously, and with a row right down the middle. And here's a rendering showing kind of what that could look like with an event happening. So plenty of seating, lots of room to move around. And then that partition would cover kind of the doors to those bathrooms, but also act as with some acoustic properties because the material would absorb some of that sound. So it's both functional and aesthetic. And here's what it could look like as an exhibit or a festival space with, it could fit about 6 tables with the proper room in between. And this would be a great spot to have, like maybe during colder months, some exhibitions, some booths, maybe little farmers markets or craft fairs and things like that. So here's what that could look like with table setup with different vendors. Just a really cool event space that could also be opened up to the outside. So even when it is warm out, the ability to kind of move in and out and provide some additional event space to what landscape was created outside would be present with those doors open. And then here's a little kind of materials and furniture palette with some suggestions for different seating. That top row is all found in the primary school building or the stone school building. And then those white chairs are also what we showed in the renderings for the storage building. And then some options for tables, just some accessible suggestions. And then all along the bottom, we've got some recommendations for finishes, just based on kind of the materials palette that we created for both buildings. And then this is our page of precedent imagery. So in the top corner, we've got kind of our inspiration for the chalk menus, lots of contrast, so it's easy to read. Below that is a really large topographic map. So that was sort of the scale inspiration for the map in the hallway in that rendering. Beneath that are some folding glass doors, which could be used in the multi-purpose community building, which would create just a really easy transition from inside to outside and really easy to collapse down. We also have an image of repurposed lockers. So the ones in the hall could be left as is or painted to kind of give them a new look. But either way, those could be a really neat addition to the space for storage that's already in the building. Below that, we've got some wall-mounted displays, which obviously save space on the floor to go straight up the wall. Next to that, we've got kind of our inspiration for that cutout window with a little transom above it, so it mimics the look of the original doors. And then beneath that, just some ways to mount instruments on the wall and kind of a way to get those up and maybe even fill the space with more by using the wall space. I think that's all we've got.
All right, thank you, Maren, and thank you to the design team. I think they've done a really great job here. Let me take back the controls. So I think, in just a quick summary is that some of the key topics that we've touched on are certainly environmental education, potential for the site master plan and its ability to host special events, both community gatherings, and then of course with the visitor center potential is that the key elements that we're trying to tap into are certainly the visitor center component, having a landing spot for that 250,000 visitors that are coming through the county, a place for motorcycle rallies to gather and to congregate before going on, whether that's for show cars or motorcycles or people coming to the area to Grayson Highland State Park for horses. And then, of course, inside of the visitor center is that there's, a highlight of, the local heritage, local traditions, and of course the music. So with that, if there's, I know it's kind of getting late in the evening, y'all have had a long day ahead of us. So if there's any questions, we're happy to answer that. And then from here, we'll be moving into the final report. So thanks again, Tracy, for the opportunity to be engaged with the White Top community.
Is John Fant, one question. Could you put the the top down view of the site plan back up, please?
Sure.
Okay, so the parking lot, what was the number of vehicles you think? You say 30, right?
33 spaces, sir.
33?
Yes, sir.
So on any given day, that's plenty. But on a festival day, is there any opportunity for overflow parking in and around there?
John, there is, on Schoolhouse Road.
Yeah.
The state has on the creekside.
Yeah.
A 15-foot graded gravel space. Because even when the school was there, they had their overflow parking at times when events occurred.
Yeah.
So literally from about 75 feet from the intersection all the way to the bridge, which is where the dotted line stops.
Yeah.
On the top left.
Yeah.
That whole side of that road is available for parking.
Almost like an extra wide shoulder.
Yeah, well, it's 15 feet wide, sure. But it was designated developed for parking in years past.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, nice concept.
Any other questions for me? Awesome.
That's good.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate you
Yeah,
being
great
with us.
work.
Thanks to the team.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if y'all have any questions, just funnel them through Tracy and we'll be following up with all the digitals of this. So thanks again, and y'all have a great evening. We'll probably duck out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Do you have any questions for me? Or Tom? Just
Well,
Supervisor.
I think it's important for the board to understand that all the work to date has been grant funded by the state and by the feds. We're working on developing additional grant opportunities to support the project. Due to the hard work of this fine lady at the podium, she's already received a $25,000 grant for landscaping.
It's for the track.
Well, track, as part of the landscape development. We have a tentative commitment for funding to do the abatements. So due to this lady's hard work, they're really going after the grants to help with this. And I can tell you that we've been told by Mount Rogers Planning District, by DEQ and others, that the fact that Virginia Tech, that we went through this whole process, increases our chances of getting grant funding to execute on it up to 90%. So it's a great project. Somebody asked me why music, to focus on music. Well, there is no music venue in White Top today, but you know where the one originally was, on the top of the mountain. And there was a stage and other things that occurred up there. And when the state took it over, they shut it down and torqued it. So it captures the essence of the history, much of which I've had to learn by talking to old timers, because obviously I'm not an old timer. In that I'm an old timer, but not that really. Anyway, so I was just, I have to tell you, I was amazed at what these folks did in taking the input and turning it into something that could bring jobs, could capture and revenue from the people who travel in and out and around this area, And frankly, that really captures the heritage of the western end of the county. So, and Tracy is by far primarily responsible for the projects we make.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So,
Best case scenario, we could have the demolition done by the end of the year if everything falls in place.
So your funding that you're working on right now is for the demolition piece?
Yes.
Well, it's actually an abatement piece, and we may have to look at some other funding, financial funding for the demolition, because back commission, the EQ, none of them want totally fund demolition. But they said if you, we may fund part of it if you put a little money in.
When you say abatement, are you talking about remediation of the asbestos that's in the old building?
Yes.
Both buildings.
Yeah.
It has to be properly disposed of.
Right, but to do that in the building, we're not going to do, you get a demo. Demolish.
You gotta take it, you gotta do the abatement.
And we stuff out before you
And if that is done and the demo is taken care of, then our chances of getting other grants increase significantly.
The only other thought is, we've kicked around this idea of a wellness center for a long time in the county. One concept that's out there is these, wellness parks that are spread around. Tracy, is that concept kind of fit with the park playground that could be potentially incorporated into that area because you don't have any wellness sort of facility up in that area?
John, that area, the property behind the county's property, and that property is the single largest acreage of flat ground west of Wood. And one of the things they picked up on was we could put a quarter-mile flat walking trail in so that people could exercise and do things that right now many of the older people can't do, right? Because they're either doing this or this. The joints don't take it to heart. So yes, this is, they're trying to capture the essence of making the destination for wellness, entertainment, something to draw people into it.
Outdoor recreation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think merging those two efforts would also help in some potential.
And I say today, the only way that property is used is Saturday and Sundays. Families bring their small children to play on the playground.
We got that.
Picnics out of the yard.
This idea of the wellness piece, not to get too far off of the track of my logic, but related is, there's a group of folks that have been trying to get rid of the $200,000 in that fund for a while, but it has to be used for a wellness facility. This idea of the wellness fitness parks around the county, maybe that concept would fit with them and meet their requirements. You know what I mean? So we may want to approach them. That's $200,000 that can be sprinkled through the county partly up as part of this project to help with the track and the playground fitness part. So that's maybe that we think about re-engaging that group with this concept also.
Thank
Part
you.
of this.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks, Chris. What's the next step? It's the abatement piece and demolition. Do we go to a design phase? Do we do what's
The company Cardinal, if we get the grant to do abatement, they already have a contract with DEQ. And just about any abatement in a municipality building or county structure, they design that and oversee that with Mount Rogers Planning District. Okay. So that's all built into the grant funding that I've got.
All the permits and they take care of all that.
Thanks, Tracy. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tracy.
Are you leaving for the night?
I guess I can wait.
Well, I'm not on the, I have to wait to the very end, but I want to talk to you specific for this.
Okay, Mr. Danny Boyd.
All right. A short version on this. Appreciate you being here, asking for a partnership. We've been working
This is Blue Ridge Plateau Initiative, it's a 501c3. You've probably heard about it. It's the sheep project for medical purposes that we've been proposing. We did a trial demonstration in 16 and 17 and actually produced some of these sheep. The market potential has grown really rapidly in just the last little bit. We applied for and received the Opportunity Zone project. So we were selected at one of 16 in 3 states, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ohio. So we have Blue Ridge Plateau, we have the Opportunity Zone area, and we're trying to get our business plan and our prospectus and pro forma and all of these financial things. We have our plans, almost have a business plan finalized. So we got $46,000 from the Opportunity Zone people. We needed some additional funds because they wanted us to go ahead and get in on the first round of the investor convention. That's coming up in February, the 23rd and 24th. We have $20,000 in Richmond with BDAC. Steve Burson, it's a AFID grant that we talked to him about helping pay locust impact investing to do our final financial work. He said that he could get that if the county would come up with $1,000 cash and $1,000 in-kind services as a match because they like to work with the localities. The governor has already approved it. He has not released the funds because he wants to have a kickoff and an announcement, saying that Grayson County has received this grant. So we're needing to get our work finalized again because we're up against the deadline. And he said that if we can write him a letter, it comes from the county on the county letterhead, that we can go ahead and utilize or expend some of the funds that we'll be getting in the grant. Then he can go ahead and issue it out. We can finalize our prospectus and the pro forma, and we'll be ready for this big kickoff on the 23rd and 24th of February. So basically, that's what I'm asking is for your support, permission to go ahead and request the funding of that, and to partner with us by putting up the $1,000 that will be used the same as the 20 to finalize all this business. So that's where we are. Talked with Mr. Shapley and Mr. Smith there, and actually give the Ag Business Advisory Group update on that. So this is a really high-tech deal. What they're basically doing is they're doing research with the sheep that emulate human being. And it goes all the way from a newborn lamb as an infant, all the way to a grown person. The pulmonary, the vascular, and all of those things are really good. The thing about these, the reason they're so valuable and the demand is tremendous right now, they are free of over 53 pathogens that sheep normally get. Now, that's an expensive deal. You have to have a biosecure facility, and it's sort of hard. These 2 veterinarians in New Hampshire, the one that started it, husband and wife, Dick and Richard and Julie Hurley. And so we have the ability here to do the production of these sheep. And basically, that's what they would like for us to do, is to basically they'll continue doing research and marketing. And so we could grow these sheep here. They're taking bone marrow out of the sheep and stem cell, and they put stem cell of a human, and they're growing ligaments, and they're growing things that, and the Department of Defense is a big buyer. They're already doing it. I mean, it works. And these ligaments attach and grow, and there's no rejection. They're selling blood from these sheep. We've sold in January about every 2 weeks, 3 or 4 liters of blood from the sheep, and they're using that for a variety of things, and they want it from SPF sheep, $1,000 a liter. These folks normally was selling the sheep, and if they sold 4 or 5 a month, that was a good month for them. In January, this past January, they've already delivered 61 head, and there's more on the horizon, so they cannot meet the production, they cannot meet the demand of it now. So it would be an opportunity if we can make all this work, and again, it's high tech. You're probably talking about a $25 to $30 million investment, and it would be right here in Grayson County, if we can get the right group of investors and come in. So I found out about it several years ago. From what they told me, I thought it was impossible that we couldn't do it. So I made a trip up to New Hampshire and seen the facility. And I said, well, we can do this and probably do it a lot cheaper than you can do it. Just because of our grass and all of that. So that's where we are. And I would ask if we could get the letter sent soon, electronic letter to Steve Burson at VDAX. We can get our money coming this way, and we can finalize this and see if we can make it work. That 61 head, just a little less than $200,000 income. The market, we've got consultants already hired with the Appalachian Funds monies that we got, the grant, and they're predicting that there's probably 10,000 sheep annually that's needed right now by the medical research facilities. We think we can capture at least 30% of that, and more likely more than that, because there's a couple other places in the United States that has sheep that they're selling for this purpose, but none of them are 53 pathogen free. Most of those are less than 20. So there's no other sheep in the world as healthy and as clean as these. And the medical industry knows it. And basically these sales are happening with no marketing. They're just word of mouth, and they're finding out about it. Wake Forest Baptist is on line to get some of these sheep from New Hampshire. And likely some of those were born in Grayson County. We shipped them to New Hampshire. So I think there's a better way. Be glad to answer questions if anyone has it. But we're sort of in a crutch as far as being able to finish up with this project, and that's what we would like to do.
So
Danny, are these the sheep that you have to double fence?
It is.
And barren for 2 years to get all?
That's exactly right.
Everything off the land?
Yeah, and actually this project would be 2 farms. One would be a derivation farm, and that's where you start with the sheep and you actually synchronize the breeding, and then you do C-sections on the lamb. It'd also be an educational facility. Virginia Tech Vet School, we're working with them, and LMU, and they have a vet school in Lee County in Virginia. Matter of fact, the LMU students, when we were doing our trials, they come up, 2 of them, and help do the C-section. So it's an educational facility also that will be incorporated.
They came down to Sherman Brown.
That's exactly right. Yep, they sure did.
Carry some of those babies.
Exactly right. Yeah, I did too. But then we will have and it's a biosecure farm with a double perimeter fence. We have to let it lie idle for 2 years. And then, we've got some sites selected that we think will work. It's a very expensive proposition, but it looks like that the way the market is now, we're looking at 5 million to 10 million pretty much on the startup once we get into production and get something to say. It's a long shot. It's a very technical deal, but it would the surrounding businesses, with the blood, and they use a lot of that to go in laboratories in the petri dishes, and so a business could come in if we're collecting blood from SPF sheep. Then we could have an industry that comes in and produces these petri dishes and sells them, and then so there's another part, it's animal derived materials. So we could sell the umbilical cords, the placentas of the sheep, as long as we can keep them clean. And there's an export market for those. And you would not believe the potential that is there from that. So there's 4 or 5 offshoots if it all worked. But in order to get it to work, we got to get started with a derivation place and then get started with this other. So that's where we are.
Is this the same group that Bill Schaffner was working with?
That is, yep. Bill and Ronald and Joy, Sherman, Brian Grimm and his wife Georgette. Yep, Georgianne.
So is this a performance-based grant, the thing that they were waiting on the governor to announce?
Yes, it is. It's an AFID grant. It's a planning
So
grant.
it's a performance-based.
Exactly. And we're basically, he's already signed off on it. He's just not going to release the funds until he makes the announcement.
Yeah, I got it. Is there another example of when the county is basically backed up the governor's grant with money prior to the governor announcing? I gotta be frank, I'm a little uneasy getting out in front of the governor.
I agree.
Well, yes, Shenandoah County, and you actually have a sample letter and Steve Burson, and you actually could call Steve Burson and ask him. He says it's a regular deal, that it's not unusual to do this. And Shenandoah County is the one, the latest one, and he had us send a sample letter. And basically it's just giving us the authorization so that we can be totally legal to expend some of the funds. And then when the grant comes, we pay more. But yes, it is done.
All right, so if the county backs up the what you're saying the governor is gonna announce, and then he announced any money that the county has spent to that point, you reimburse with the grant money?
Yeah, the only money that the county would be due would be $1,000.
Not if you're spending $20,000, which is also what you're asking for.
Where the 20,000 comes from Burson.
Right, but you're asking us to give you the permission to draw against the county until the state says you've got the 20K, right?
Not necessarily against the county. The way I see it is that we're drawing against Blue Ridge Plateau Initiative and the other funds and the consultants.
So you're only asking us for $1,000.
$1,000, $1,000 and $1,000 in kind. And if, I don't know all the details of the grant, but Steve Burson does, but he assured me that this was a routine thing. It was perfectly legit. Shenandoah County is the one that did that.
We're not, okay, so we're not involved though. If we're giving you $1,000, which is what you asked for the Ag Committee, that has nothing to do with the governor's announcement.
No, but just that's what he required in order for us to be eligible to get the 20,000 from VDAX. That the county put in $1,000 of cash and $1,000 of in kind.
We talked about this in the Ag Committee.
We did, yes.
No, I know, I wasn't there, but I read.
And I thought we'd already written a support letter.
You have written a support letter. That's in September. And that we thought that the money would be coming sooner, but they held it up until after his announcement. And this was actually Stephen Burson's idea that if the county could write this letter saying, let's go ahead and get started on this thing so we can meet the deadlines of this other part that's coming up, that he would do that.
Now, will these sheep be coming from different farms in Grayson County?
No, now sheep farmers in Grayson County could supply some of the sheep if it's the right breed. They're very selective on the type of sheep that they use. Polypay is one that they have used and had success with. So, those are the sheep that would be used to start with. When we did our trials, we used the ewes that the farmers owned. And there's 4 farms: Billy Schaffner, Sherman Brown, Ronald, Jones and Brian Green. And then they were synchronized breeding, and then we took the lambs by C-section, and then shipped them up to New Hampshire. Once we started the derivation, we would start with whatever is recommended by the group that's doing it, Dick and Julie Herman. They're leaning toward a polypay. But there would be opportunities, or would be jobs for, some local folks to, work in the facility. Matter of fact, some of the folks that we did the demonstration with are interested in working and carrying this on. So, and then the other, there'll be lots of fencing, build and supplies, and then the other industries that may come along with this. And they'll be purchased. Some of the land will be either purchased or leased, so and then, with the educational component to it, that will increase, with the number of people working there and serving that.
I have one question. So let's say things didn't work. Pulled the $20,000 down from VDAC and it falls through. The county's not responsible for that $20,000.
No, the county's not responsible for the $20,000. The $1,000 is, match, if you will, and the in-kind is all that the county is responsible for.
Yes, sir. This is a real simplistic question, but tell me again, what is the end goal of raising the sheep? What is it you are wanting to do with them in the end?
Fill the market to do medical research. We're closer to the higher end of the market here in Grayson County than they are in New Hampshire. So the Research Triangle, Wake Forest Baptist, the using of the animals for medical research is really kicking up. The parts that they're, doing, like the ligaments, that is taken off. And what really makes it work is having this specific pathogen-free sheep. So we're looking to fill a void in the ag sector and having a business that would create jobs and opportunities here in Grayson County and fill in that market. One thing that they have learned with the sheep and with the lambs, when you have a blood transfusion with an infant, there's a big probability of rejection of the blood. They learned by using the lambs of the NEO sheep at Boston, Mass, that research facility up there, that if you give the lamb nitrous oxide just before the transfusion, it almost eliminates the rejection. That's just one thing that they've learned. You can go on their website, New England Ovis, and read all about, how they come up with all that. So for the medical facility, which helps everybody, that's what we're trying to accomplish and to serve a need and create opportunities.
Is it polypay sheep? Is that a wool sheep?
It is a wool sheep and a white face sheep. And they're actually Leo Tammy down in the Valley of Virginia used to, I don't know if any of you know Leo, but he was a big sheep producer, and he sold some of the polypay that he raised in Virginia that went to New Hampshire when they got started on all this. So, that's the breed is whatever, seems to work out, from that standpoint.
The sheep they took from these farms, it was my understanding to keep them free from any disease, whatever parasites, they have to deliver them via C-section.
Yes, they cannot have contact with the mother, but that's the reason you have the double fencing. You can't have nose to nose with any other ruminant or deer or anything else. So it's a very high tech deal. But they're doing it up there, and they're very limited in the space that they have. And with our season, the climate, the grass that we can grow, the quality water, and on and on and on, we can actually do a better job of raising the sheep, than they can. What we don't have is the SPF farm, the biosecure farm, and we can take these lambs that were born C-section to get us started and a place to raise them. That's what we don't have. So that's what we're working on.
It's 2 years out, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we can get started on the derivation farm, build a building and house the lambs in that building and start raising them while the clock's ticking on the land around that, so.
Okay. I'm gonna just ask, like, Mr. Fan's got sheep. Can you raise sheep for this, or is it gonna come from?
No, I mean, if you wanted, a farmer wanted to raise sheep to sell if they were the right breed, then this derivation farm will be buying sheep. Or if a farmer wanted to invest all of the money to raise SPF sheep, they would gladly take them on. But basically, you're going to have to spend several $1 million to make your farm eligible. It's not a run-of-the-mill sheep. If it was, you know, the price would be a lot less than they are. These are high-dollar sheep. And the reason they're so expensive is the way they're having to be housed. But, you know, it can be done here, and it would be one more business in the county and could make a difference, you know, all over the creation. There's export markets that's already looking for these items and the animal drive materials. The Germans have already been here to New England to check it out. So Germany, Switzerland, and Malaysia are three that's already, you know, ready to buy if they have them available.
I personally don't have, if in fact it's just $1,000 and $1,000 in kind, is all that is being asked for the county. I think we need to verify with this guy in Richmond. But if that's all, then, you know, probably we could run the traps on it and see if it all checks out. But I was, based on the email traffic that we got, I was concerned that we were signing up for a $20,000 line, almost a loan. And that made me very uneasy.
Right.
But if it's, in fact, there's $1,000 to be able to get VDAX to do what VDAX says is already done, then it probably makes sense. So, but I think we need to verify that information. That's my opinion.
And you have Steve Burson's contact info, email and everything.
Yes, it's in that email traffic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, I asked the ship administration just to kind of check it out for us and see if it all is on the. I just am worried, you know, this is an enterprise just like many of the other businesses that come in here. It seems like this is a little different process. I don't know why we're not running through the same process as we do for other businesses that come here.
What's your timeline here? You need.
We're needing the letter as soon as we can get it. We have to be finished with our business plan and the prospectus and be ready for the 23rd and 24th of February. So that, and they're really wanting they want this plan to go before the investors. It'll be a virtual deal, but there's something like 1,100 investor groups that signed up to view this. This is all over the country.
It's $1,000 is before February 23rd.
No. The $1,000, we're not going to request that until, you know, we don't have to request that now. But all that gives us the authorization to do is to go ahead and get Locust Impact Investing to finish up our prospectus. Hopefully, Steve Burson says once he gets the letter, he can release the use of those funds and the funds will come quickly. The $20,000. And then at that point, when we get finalized paying Locust Impact, we may ask for the $1,000.
But we need to get on with that letter this month, right?
as soon as possible. And they're actually a copy of the letter. I mean, if we don't get it here in a short turnaround, it's not going to give everybody time to finalize the work. So that's the rush part.
So can you get this done and get a letter wrote in a week?
Sure. If you have a letter to go by.
Yeah.
That's a help a lot.
Yeah, it's already got it. You've already got the letter to go by.
It's not the same letter we already.
No, they're different. You already got the sample. It's already written. And you could actually send it electronically to Steve Burson once you talk and find out and get all the deals done.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I'm just a little uneasy about the whole governor's not announced it yet sort of deal. Everything I've been involved with around is don't talk about this until the governor says so. That's why I think we just gotta verify that we're straight on this, because we just don't wanna cause more damage by if we don't check it out. That's my concern.
If they check it out and everything's good, are we saying let's send the letter?
Yeah, I mean, if it all checks out, then it sounds like, and we're not, again, I'm still stuck on the 20K, I guess. I'm just, as long as we're not, if we're just basically writing a letter of support, is what it sounds like we're doing.
And a letter of support was written in September, and this is just a letter requesting that the $20,000 grant funds can go ahead and be used as quick as the governor announces. They'll send us the money.
Maybe I'm still caught up on what is, if you don't need $1,000, what is it that Grayson County is doing? Why are we even involved?
Because VDATS likes to partner with the municipality. When they spend these planning grant funds, they like the locality to be involved and be partners with the whole deal. That's the reason we're asking for. Because when we asked, and Burson told us about the grant, we applied, and he said, yes, we can do that. And sometimes there's more matching, but he said if the county would put up $1,000 of money to match and $1,000 in kind, then we would be eligible for that $20,000 grant. And that's what I went over with the group, back in the fall.
Okay, we can work on it.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank y'all.
See you.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey, yeah. What do you? She's on business resolution. Okay, on the 3rd Street, is that what you're, okay. We're ready when you are.
First, I would like to just express my sincerest apologies. I was informed this evening by Ms. Heath that the map that I had provided in the previous board packet was incorrect. The one that I have attached, Carl, if you'll get that slide up, your board packet now has the correct map. I do have paper copies if you want to take a look at them. So just as a follow-up, yesterday, Mr. Reed Walters contacted me to inform the county that there were recorded sewer easements across Mr. Deal's property. Previously, the town and Mr. Deal had spoken, and with the understanding that should the entrance that he wants to put in if it impeded the driveway or the town's infrastructure, if the driveway or entrance impeded the town's infrastructure, then Mr. Deal would incur the cost for the relocation and alterations of the infrastructure. So I did have a conversation with Mr. Deal, the town manager, and VDOT today regarding just that. And I reiterated to Mr. Deal that this is my understanding, that the town and you have already discussed that if anything interferes with their driveway, with the entrance, then he would have to pay for that. I did talk to Mr. Deal this evening. He concurred, is in agreement. Matter of fact, I believe he's already paid the town for some of the repairs that's already had to have happened when he was cleaning out the road. So I do have Andy Fowler with VDOT, and I believe Ms. Heath available for questions if you have any comments or concerns that I can't answer. And with that, if you're comfortable, I will proceed to either take your questions, or if you're satisfied, then we'll move forward with the resolution.
Just so I'm straight, and I talked to Pam this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
The area we're talking about is on the lower left side where the arrow is pointing as you're looking at the map to the southwest.
Yes.
When I went out there a month or so ago and looked around, it looked like a deer trail. It didn't even look like it was apparently the road, but at some point it was the road. And so, back in December, I was concerned based on the language, but now that I understand where that is, and it's that area where the arrow's pointing to the southwest, everything, I'm okay with, the proceeding with this. It sounded like it all checked out after they spent some time with me. So I appreciate VDOT's patience and educating me, and also you too.
Well, I apologize that I had the wrong map. I think if we'd had the right one, I think we wouldn't be here right now.
Well, it was the right one back in December. It was the right one back then. But it was good that we talked through it.
Yes.
And so I don't have any issues. If y'all are good, I'm good.
And additionally, Mr. Deal also provided in your board packet a letter just stating why he was doing it. So if I have that, if you want me to read it, otherwise I can proceed with the resolution.
I'm good. We're good. Proceed with the resolution.
All right. Resolution notice to intent to abandon a portion of Route 702 from the secondary system of state highways. Whereas it appears to the board that secondary route 702 from Route 58 to 0.08 mile northeast of Route 58, a distance of 0.08 miles, serves no public necessity and is no longer necessary as part of the secondary system of state highways. Now therefore be it resolved, the clerk of the board is directed to post and publish notice of the board's intent to abandon the aforesaid section of Route 702 pursuant to Section 33.2-909 of the Code of Virginia as amended. Be it further resolved that the certified copy of this resolution be forwarded to the resident administrator of the Virginia Department of Transportation. Adopted this 11th day of February 2021 in the Grayson County, Virginia. So before you make your decision, I have formulated a motion to try to help the process, knowing that everybody in part has agreed to the easements and to the potential outcomes if infrastructure relocation has to be moved. Our motion for the board tonight is upon abandoning the 0.08 miles of Curry Street at the request by Mr. Blake Deal and in conjunction with Virginia Department of Transportation and the Town of Independence, should the owner choose to install a driveway and the entrance connecting to US 58 East, all parties involved agree the owner will incur the cost to relocate any infrastructure necessary to establish said entrance and driveway.
Sounds like a heck of a good motion.
Yeah.
Who wants to repeat?
I'll make that motion.
Best motion that's ever come before the board.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor, aye. Thank you for your help.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Jen.
Be
Be
safe.
careful driving.
Thank you.
Okay, next one on the business, Grayson County Board of Supervisors, 2021 rules of procedure.
Yes, Mr. Smith, can you handle that discussion?
I'll do my best. Remote location. Bear with me, I didn't know if we'll do this. Remote locate participation in the board meeting. And basically, I think that's where we want to clear up that it's okay for a board member to participate in the United States a couple times a year, and open session, closed session, both, not just closed session. So it now reads remote participation 5.3, remote participation in a board meeting. A member of the board may participate remotely in open session and may participate in closed session, meaning the board and participate in the open portion of the board meeting to discuss and vote upon the motion to convene in closed session and the motion to return to open session and the certification required pursuant to the Code of Virginia 242-37-3712 through electronic communications from a remote location that is not open to the public as provided in the Code of Virginia 242-3708.1.1, subject to the following requirements and it's just required. So the main thing that has been changed is a member of the board may participate remotely in open sessions. The rest of that paragraph reads for closed session as it had. So now this allows open, closed sessions, remote participation.
Did we put is there a limit on the number? Is that in there?
Two. Yeah.
You mentioned two, but is it in the words?
I think that's on down
Too
there.
many, it's number 3.
Yeah.
And each county,
Yeah.
there are too many.
Thank you.
There it is, yep.
I knew it was.
Yeah.
Couldn't recall right off.
Good.
Well, I think everything's covered now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I make a motion we adopt the rules of procedure.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay. And new business, friendship, we got that took care of earlier.
Yep.
Resolution of the Continental Volunteer Fire Department rescue.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 resolutions. First one is Grayson County Emergency Services, whereas section 15.2-955 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires the local governing body's approval and authorization of any emergency medical service organization to operate within their locality. And whereas Troutdale Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad currently authorized to operate in Grayson County as a basic life support agency has demonstrated that they meet all licensure requirements to perform at advanced life support level. And whereas Grayson County must authorize any change in level of the provision of care. And whereas Troutdale Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad has appeared before the Grayson County Board of Supervisors to request the board's approval and authorization of Troutdale Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad to operate and provide emergency medical services at the advanced life support level in Grayson County, Virginia. And now therefore be it resolved by the Grayson County Board of Supervisors that it is in the best interest of citizens of Grayson County to approve and authorize Troutdale Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad to operate and provide emergency medical rescue services in Grayson County, Virginia at the advanced life support level, adopted this 14th day of January 2021 in the county of Grayson, Virginia. The second, what's the name? Yep. That's it.
That's for truck day.
Uh-huh.
Comments or questions on it?
No, we were speaking with the membership last night. I was pretty impressed in talking with some of them that they're up to like 32 members now.
Wow.
So
And the department's turned around.
yeah, it's turned around and got some good numbers.
That's great.
Real good to hear.
June. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor,
Uh,
Chairman, we
Yes.
need to take roll call votes on these resolutions, and we need to go back and take a roll call vote on the resolution for the abandonment too.
Okay, I did on the,
For the
these
abandonment.
didn't call for, I mean, this says for a motion, so I thought I get changed up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
should have caught that when we done.
Roll call on the resolution for Troutdale. Ms. Sutherland.
Aye.
Mr. Cash.
Aye.
Mr. Plant.
Aye.
I also aye. And I guess show that Mr. Reynolds is froze up and gone on. Okay, and we're back up on resolution to intent to abandon portion of Route 702 Curry Street in section of state highways. Ms. Sutherland.
Aye.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Harris. Aye. Mr. Plant. And I also aye.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go to the resolution of Galax Fire this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Grayson County Emergency Services Resolution. Whereas section 15.2-955 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires the local governing body's approval and authorization of any emergency medical service organization to operate within their locality. And whereas Galax Fire and Rescue has appeared before the Grayson County Board of Supervisors to request the board's approval and authorization for Galax Fire and Rescue to operate and provide emergency medical services at the basic life support level in Grayson County, Virginia. And now therefore be it resolved by the Grayson County Board of Supervisors that it is in the best interest of the citizens of Grayson County to approve and authorize Galax Fire and Rescue to operate and provide emergency medical rescue services in Grayson County, Virginia at the basic life support level. Adopted this 14th day of January, we got the wrong date, in the county of Grayson, Virginia. So it needs to be read February, what is this, 11th?
And the license is that way too, I think.
Oh, well. Yep, sure it is.
Motion to approve with the correction of the date.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Let's say, let's do it. Ms. Sutherland.
Aye.
Harris.
Aye.
Also aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to board appointments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the Building Inspection Board of Appeals, which is a 4-year term, Robert D. Phipps' term expired 12/31/20. He's indicated that he will continue to serve. David, and is willing to continue to serve. David Hood is willing to serve. Christopher Crook, an alternate, is still willing to serve also. Did you want to do all of them or do?
I think we can do all of them.
Yeah, those are the only ones that require action.
Yep, correct. But just for informational purposes, we do have several good candidates for the EDA that we will have that final recommendation to you at the next board meeting. And for the Planning Commission 4-year term, Michael D. Phipps' term expired 12/31/20, does not wish to serve another term. I believe that is in Supervisor Hash's.
Yeah, I got an excellent recommendation today. We'll see how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve the board appointments.
So move.
Here a second.
Second.
On favor, aye. Also, Mr. Smith, that on that Curry Street, that date needs to be changed too.
Okay.
That next works, I don't think that's good.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to remind the public, 2021 large item solid waste collection for Grayson County residents only, including the town of Independence and Freeze, will take place on March 15th on Mondays, which is a regular collection route. March 29th, Tuesdays on the regular collection route. April 12th, Wednesdays, regular collection route. April 26th, Thursdays, regular collection route. May 10th, Fridays, regular collection route. All large item collections begin on Monday of the scheduled week. May 24th, Town of Independence and Town of Freeze is curbside. All items must be placed at curbside by the beginning date listed above. You can read the rest if you don't. If you'd like to take.
I only have a question down there. I don't know that either one of y'all know this, but down there under electronic recycling, it says that will be accepted each Friday and Saturday from 8 to 12. But I think it's probably Wednesday and Saturday because this may have been based when we used to do collections on when people could dump trash and take it there on Fridays and Saturdays.
Probably so, yeah. Thanks for catching
So
that.
you may just check with John.
Okay.
Thank you. I think you're right.
Anything else? Do we approve that, or is this just information?
Just informational. Right?
Normally y'all approve it.
So
Second.
Third.
Approved. And Mr. Blooper did want me to mention that he has some concern with his health situation. He's had some to quit. He's had, and then got one getting ready to retire, and he said some large item pickup is going to be
what he said the other night.
stretch for him. So he wanted me to reiterate that to y'all tonight.
Well, does he need to adjust the plan? Or it doesn't matter?
No, we talked in the meeting and all, and so we think we can go forward with this schedule. We discussed that, sat down. Mr. Bill Shepard was in there with us, and we talked about that, but we think we can stick to this way.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the contingency fund.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to talk with the board and see what your thoughts are on, and just regarding the contingency fund. What has happened is, as we were hit by the coronavirus, we went to all the department heads and to the constitutional officers and asked them to put aside 5% of their budgets in a contingency fund as we explored what kind of financial hit we were going to take from the coronavirus, along with the impact of the virus itself on people. In other words, trying to look at it from a financial standpoint and from an emergency standpoint, which we are still under an emergency declaration. I promised the people that we asked to do this, that in January, we would take a look at the financials and see how we were tracking. See if we needed that money related to the COVID-19 situation. And that we would look at what the COVID-19 situation was from a virus standpoint. Myself and my team, we feel that we're in a situation where we would recommend to you that you reopen the contingency fund money, and take off the hiring freeze. The bulk of the money that is in the contingency fund is actually in economic development that is badly needed right now in order to start rejuvenating the county after the coronavirus. So the majority of that money is in the economic development area, and it's mainly with the county government. I've had requests from the sheriff's office, from the school, and from DSS to review the situation and make a recommendation to the board. I'm recommending to the board that we release the contingency fund money and remove the hiring freeze.
Comments?
Given that we're still under the state of emergency and we don't know when this is going to end for sure, and the vaccinations aren't flowing like we hoped, although we're getting better. I think at this point, given that we're just over halfway through the fiscal year, I think I'm a little more comfortable with maybe a piecemeal approach to the contingency fund release. So, like the sheriff needs to order his vehicles, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And if there's not something like that, specific thing, quantifiable request, then you could go to a percent, let's say 50% or whatever. But given that we don't really know what is going to happen in the next 5 months before the next FY, we got a favorable report from the treasurer. So, that's comfortable. It makes things a little more comfortable. But I think at this point, I'd look at it on a quarterly basis on the contingency fund. My personal thought on the hiring freeze is I think that's a prudent recommendation. I think we could get moved in that direction. But that's my thoughts, my recommendation.
I think that would work because if you think about that 5%, it really shouldn't be, if they've managed their budgets, they continue to manage their budgets the way that we've asked them to do. They should really need that money at the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
So doing it on a month-to-month, portioning it out on a month-to-month basis, I don't have any problem with that. I think that would work. Did you want some?
No.
Okay.
Or even on a quarterly. You can do a quarterly. That's up to you all.
They do have to have that back in order to spend it before June 30th. Have whatever they're doing here before.
So you could do a March, April, May distribution of it, divided into 3 sections.
It may take that long for the sheriff to get his cars.
Yeah, I think the sheriff's situation is a little different than he's got a kind of not an emergency, but a very urgent situation that we need to take care of, in my opinion, right away.
Yeah, I think where they've been looking through the check registry, have they ordered some? Was that the sheriff's office vehicles that was ordered from the Ford dealership in Richmond?
I'm not sure, Mike. I'd have to ask Lisa.
I've seen where some have been purchased, but I didn't know if that was them or another department.
It take longer than that for them to get here.
That's, the sheriff had a concern of if you didn't get an answer pretty quick, he was afraid that the timing was going, with the COVID-19 and vehicles being less for the in production and all, he was afraid he'd run into some problems.
There may be some issues with getting the vehicles on.
Yeah,
right?
that's what he was concerned about.
I think our numbers, I was talking to Paul last night, he said our numbers are down significantly, like
They are.
39 active cases.
Yeah, it's dropped from a high of about 145 down to about 39, but I mean, it's still there, and the thing that, to go along with what you said about continuing the caution is the new strain. You know, we don't really know exactly what's gonna happen with the new strain, but hopefully as the vaccine does move out, that'll help hopefully take care of that situation, unless that vaccine is not
I think I also
effective against the new strain.
also read another report where there's about 29,000 vaccines in the Mount Rogers district that have been distributed so far, or something like that.
We went a year and I used the 5%, correct?
Right. Well, we've been, from a fiscal standpoint,
6 months.
we've been 7 months or 6 months according to what we have.
I mean, we're into it a year, but as far as the COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
6 months and we've not used it. And do we think this next 6 months is gonna be worse because of the new strain? Is that?
that's not what we're hearing. We're not hearing that, but you know, it's uncharted territory. We're not hearing it's gonna be worse than before.
These CARES Act money, when we've had a little relief that way, I don't know how much.
Well, the
Again,
school
I know I
system
bring that up,
especially
but-
has had,
Yeah.
and we have too. I mean, the county has benefited and the school system's benefited more so than probably a lot of other places.
But the sheriff, I don't want to put people in a bind either.
Right.
No,
Yeah, that's why I mean, again, it's a measured approach. I think we could provide some budgetary relief, but we could do it instead of just turning on the fire hose, we just open the faucet. Because as I look at the budget anyway, it seems like everybody's doing pretty well and I didn't see anybody in a crisis. Now, the sheriff's issue is different because he's got a long lead time from when he orders it to when he takes delivery. There may be other examples, but I think we could begin to release the controls a little bit.
Would a quarter be enough for the sheriff to do his colors? Is that what his figure is?
For his money, that's,
No, 90,000.
no, that's all of his money.
That's $90,000, 3 cars.
That's all the money that he has in the contingency.
So we couldn't do a quarter and help him out.
No.
No, in his case, I think you just gotta do
Yeah, I
buy
think so
the
too.
cars, but that's a unique situation as I understand it.
I would say if you could do it in thirds, it would just be easier to do it from a budgeting standpoint.
Well, there's only 2 quarters left, and we're a quarter away through, or almost a third of the way through this quarter, the January, February, March.
So are you recommending releasing all of it at the end of the third quarter? Is that
Now,
what
I'm
you're saying?
saying, you got, 50% you could do, roughly this quarter, January, February, March. And then in the next quarter, depending on where we are, we could look at releasing the last bid, because that's what we promised.
Yeah.
If the conditions warrant it.
I think we could do that as long as we couldn't release it at the end of the fourth
No,
quarter.
you have to do it in time for them to get it spent. But again, I think that's for y'all to manage. I just think that rather than just say, yep, here's all your money back, given that we're still in the state of emergency and we don't know, there's a lot of things we don't know about where things are gonna go.
Yeah.
There's a report that, the president got another 200,000 vaccines, so that's great news, but it'll take a while to get that down here. But we're still talking summer before the vaccinations, I think, work their way through.
Right.
And so I think it's prudent to be a little cautious going forward.
I think if we did it half in one quarter and half in the next, I think we'd be fine.
But I think there are examples of where the sheriff is one. Where,
He's the one that's come to me and said, this is a situation that, if you guys can do this, I need it urgently.
Yeah. Your motion, benefit.
I'll make a motion that we authorize administration to, provide the sheriff's contingency funding in order for him to purchase the vehicle. And then, employ a measured approach for the release of the contingency funds back to the other departments as the administrator sees fit.
You want to throw in the removal of the hiring freeze, or do you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, and then, and also, lift the hiring freeze.
Motion's been made, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Administrative report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make you and the public aware that the Tobacco Commission is accepting applications for student loan repayment. It's called a talent attraction program. The Tobacco Region Revitalization Commission is now accepting application for its talent attraction program with an application deadline of April 30th, 2021. The commission is offering up to $48,000 in student loan repayment over 4 years for recent and soon-to-be graduates who live and work in certain hard-to-fill occupations in Virginia's tobacco region, specifically Southern and Southwest Virginia. These occupations include public school teachers in STEM, career/technical ed or special education, industrial and electrical engineers, information security, network and computer systems analysts, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech therapists. The individual must have graduated with a bachelor's degree or higher after March 15, 2019 and before December 31st, 2021. Again, the application deadline is April 30th, 2021. This is an information. Just want to make sure we get the word out on that. When it comes to broadband, good things are happening. AEP has run over 30 miles of fiber in Grayson County. The connection to the Mid-Atlantic broadband has been approved and will be connected in Grayson County soon. GigaBeam is looking to supply internet to Point Lookout Mountain using a dish antenna in the Elk Creek area. GigaBeam is working to locate land that they can install this, and will reach out to Grayson County landowners when this is ready. The fiber must be connected first to supply the internet to the dish antenna. AEP has requested the county's assistance in contacting public officials to help open communications with the FAA regarding installing a tower on White Top Mountain. We've done that. We reached out to Senator Warner and Senator Kane. Both offices responded favorably, asked for some additional information. I have copies of the letter that we sent to both of the senators, and they followed up, leading to the FAA scheduling a meeting tomorrow to talk with EPCO. So hopefully we'll get some resolution of this ongoing issue, but I'll pass out copies of the letter.
Is there any reason to send one to Griffith's office? I mean, at this point?
We did do that too.
You did that?
Yeah, he was the first one to get it, and then
Okay.
we expanded it. But it says, just continue on, while the tower at White Top is separate from the fiber project, it would give GigaBeam supply fixed wireless to citizens and help with public safety issues. It would help with the sheriff's office, help the park rangers, help with fire and rescue. So it's very, very important that we get that moves forward. GigaBeam is working with a team for designing the splicing diagram for AEP to connect the fiber segments, and this should be completed shortly. So things are going well. It'll be going great if we can get the FAA's approval to move ahead with the tower. So that, is there anything you would like to add, Supervisor Finn?
No, I think phase one is still a bit of a challenge, just, you know, we gotta get the poles up and it's a wireless part. And so, we've still got some challenges of accessing where we're gonna put these towers. So, Bill's aware of it and Clemens is working on it, but we've still got some obstacles to overcome in phase one.
Okay.
But one other thing though is, and just for the public, I mean, I got a call from a citizen up in Commerce Rock that was very complimentary of the fiber crews that APCO has contracted with. They were very polite, professional, courteous, whatever nice word you want to throw out there. And they were from Ohio, I think, but they were just kind of happy to be here and they were getting busy with it.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
And they work, it doesn't matter the weather.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that, you said 30 miles, so did you give a percent, about 14% or something like that of the total that we're clicking away a little over 3 miles a week.
Okay. The next thing is we've been discussing with our neighboring counties and GALACs through the VIA organization and actually beyond the VIA boundaries, correct? About the possibility of all of these municipalities and localities working together on a cigarette tax. And Mr. Smith has more details on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shepley. The General Assembly passed a bill allowing localities to set the local tax. You probably saw the article in the Galax Gazette. And basically, we're a part of that too, that study. And we went up to, the VIA group went up to the Northern Virginia Cigarette Tax Board and met with them. They had a 5-person staff. It's a big deal up there. It brings in about $1.1 million a month for those localities up there, and then it's distributed out quarterly. But anyway, they basically, these localities get that money, but it's the redistribution to the locality is based on the number of cigarette packs that is shipped from the wholesaler to the retailers in this area, in these localities. And this 5-person staff keeps up with all that, the enforcement of it, everything. And so that we're assessing and looking into that, what it would take. It would be a revenue generator for Grayson County. And we're looking into this through the VIA group. And basically would have to develop a board of our own, develop an ordinance, set the tax rates, make sure all the localities on the board. We feel like, we've been discussing, we feel like it'd be advantageous for everybody to have the same rate because we're in so close proximity. We don't want Galax to have a lower rate and us have a higher rate because it's not that far to Galax to circumvent the system. And so we've discussed that to avoid unfair competition. And also the stamp, developing stamp to put on these packs. Hiring staff to run the organization and developing a timeline for the entire organization to implement something like this. So basically, this is just an introduction to our board of supervisors in Grayson County that we are looking into this. You all would have to adopt, just like Galax, Carroll County, and all the others we'd have to buy into this process. We're looking at ways to run it, and that we think will be feasible for Grayson County. And as that develops more, we can talk about that. So just, I guess, just basically wanted to let you all know that and make sure there's not adverse opinions to us continuing? Is there, not looking for a vote or anything, but just a consensus that for us to continue on with this process?
Question. So we have to do it with City of Galax, Carroll County. If one does, the rest of the other.
Basically, the others would want to, yeah.
They don't have to.
Yeah, they
but
don't have to.
What they're saying is we should,
It'd be a combined team effort.
yeah,
I mean,
you're not bound to it.
I think it is, if Grayson County didn't, Galax and Carroll County did.
They're not gonna do that. Yeah, they've already said it's all or nothing. If Grayson County said, nope, we're not gonna do it, Galax says we can't afford to do it.
I know it's a revenue source, but you're picking on a certain group. And I don't know if you're picking on a certain group. We'll just think about it. But I know what you're saying. I don't know what the money figure is, but
I mean, we don't know that. We don't know
I
that.
done had a retailer done. I done had one retailer got on me about it. You know, more taxes, and of course that's part of it, but and then picking on the smokers, which it's not gonna bother me, but we're gonna hear a lot about it, I'll say. But anyway, I'm just throwing it out, asking a question.
And if there was a strong opinion not to do it on this board, then I guess we'd be in, I feel like right now we'd be in the minority on that. And we could cause others not to. I don't think if we chose not to do it, I don't know that there'd be others that wouldn't need it. And also the requirement through the General Assembly, you have to have, I think they've even done legislation now that they took it from 10 localities down to 6. So basically that fits the VIA group. And I know Independence has already passed, or already had a public hearing, so they can entertain doing this too.
Does Allegheny, North Carolina does North Carolina have any something similar to this? Being a border county.
Yeah.
Did those,
yeah.
You know, like we saw a couple years ago with the taxes on gasoline was so different, people would come over here.
Yeah. As we get into it, that will be something we need to look at. They do have.
No, she was saying they still come over here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Even though now with our gas prices, you can go in North Carolina, it's just cheap.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that for the last month. Maybe not now, again, but down to one area.
Anything else on the administrator's report?
No.
They're done. Do we have Richard?
I think he's already left.
The press report, no?
Who was that? Anyone here?
You know who? No, but he was going to speak and then I think we wore him out.
Okay, he left, but he only had down for the purpose of observing. So I guess he didn't have anything to say.
I don't know.
He talked to Tracy for a long time up in the hallway, so we'll see.
Okay, board supervisor. Motion going to closed session. 2.2-371A1 with council and
Mr. Chairman, would you mind doing, if we did the second one first?
A7 first.
Uh-huh.
That's fine. Look for motion.
So moved.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.